Good morning. You guys are bold to invite a couple of academics to be your last speakers of the conference. And in full disclosure, my name is Ned Ellington. I was a faculty member at Georgia Tech for about 28 years. I also was in the research faculty, my home academic unit is more in the business school. I do teach strategy. So with respect to the late Dr. Drucker, I think he was right, except for bad culture is what we don't like, and bad strategy is what we're not interested in. I was asked to speak on leadership's role in innovation. And Doug set me up great. If you think about it, we're in a changing world. Your industry is changing. I'm on the fringe of your industry a little bit. I have some clients in your industry. I actually remember in some of the early work that we did at Georgia Tech Research Institute and looking at the economics of the forestry industry, et cetera. So, when I look at it every 10 years come back, it's just a really changing world. And it's becoming to look more like some of the industries I operate in and work with, particularly with the consolidation of going up downstream in the value chain. So when I started thinking about this presentation, innovation in the forestry industry, it tends to be sort of science-driven over the years, in my experience. And the more I reflected on it, that's not true in the last 10, 15, 20 years. It's becoming very innovative. But my job specifically was not to talk about the forest industry. It was to talk about this topic of innovation and leadership's role. So in my next 20 minutes, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to use some examples to get you broadly thinking. But I do know that this industry is tiered with respect to, we have some people that are in the industry that are even a little older than me. And then you have some people about my age, and then you have some younger people, and then you got some young emerging leaders, which is hats off to this new group. I think that's a fantastic thing. And so you have to say, well, how do we establish the industry? How do the seniors, what's your role in leaving this well, leaving the industry well? How many of you remember the productivity movement of the 70s, 80s? Only a few. Thank you, sir. That was great. We had a good time back in that day. What about the quality movement of the 80s? How about the lean movement of the 90s? So what are we in now? We are in the innovation movement. We are in the innovation era. Whether you want to say we're there or not, if you're at a stage 4 level, you're thinking of innovation, period. That's just in your mindset. And you go, yeah, but we grow trees. Well, there's a lot of things you do with those. So think broadly in the next 20 minutes. Let me start off with a quick definition. Full disclosure, I was with Georgia Tech, still teach some at Georgia Tech. So you can imagine the definition that we came up with at Georgia Tech years ago. Innovation, the application of science, technology, and imagination to create market value. Connecting the dots. Think of Doug's talk, stage 4, stage 5, people connecting the dots together. I'm going to try to, I don't really care what your definition of innovation is. It's just as long as you're thinking about connecting the dots. And so let's go through a few examples. Where do we innovate? Most people are very happy when I put the slide up and they hit the product button and they, oh yeah, we innovate products, but we don't do that much anymore. But most innovation now is starting in the service area, the process area, and the business model area. Those are the 4 areas we innovate. Just for some background, what are the drivers of innovation? What causes us to innovate? About 80% of the innovation comes from the what we call market pull. It means the customer, somebody wants something, the market doesn't currently provide that, and there's an opportunity to innovate and provide that to the marketplace. A lot of old school folks think about innovation as a technology. We create a new technology and now we can do something. It's a push technology, and thank goodness it still goes on. Thank goodness for those folks in the labs that are working on new technologies. Particularly, I had a friend, Dale Threadgill. I don't know if anybody knows Dale. For years, I knew Dale, and he was my source to the University of Georgia and their knowledge base there. And I was always excited to see Dale, and because he was just, he knew a lot what was going on in your field. And then, but the problem with technology, it's expensive. A lot of us don't have the money to do that. It's long term. It's a lot of opportunity to do that together. You go back to Doug's talk, level 5, some things we do together, and the development of technology is a great example. Let me give you some examples maybe to get you going. Anybody remember these? Gosh, none? Oh, we got 1, 2, a couple of us that have less hair or gray hair, we remember these things. This is with my definition, what is this? Is this a product innovation, service? What is this? It's called an iPod. Apple came out with it. Why? And it took the market. So what was the innovation Apple came out with? Say again? It's last day of the conference. It plays music, but there's a lot of others that played music. Why did they win? It was small. Anybody ever have another MP3 player before you bought the iPod? They were better, weren't they? There were some products on the market that held more music, it held more songs, it was slick, it was cheaper. So the product really wasn't an innovation. Before the iPod, how did we buy music? CDs, some of us 8 tracks, some of us vinyl records. We bought music in a group, a bunch, right? We didn't buy a single song. The iPod innovation wasn't the technology, it wasn't the slick little buttons and the products and all this cool stuff. It was, they opened up the iTunes store and you could buy a song, one song, not the whole album. It was a business model innovation. Technology was already there. Now, they made it a little slicker and made it look good. But the real innovation to the marketplace that added value and they won was the fact that they disrupted the industry of how do you sell music. Before, you bought the whole album. How many of you ever, was that true for a long time? Some of us remember buying a single song on a little 45. Okay, now we got the second one on the back just because it was there. But the point is, go back to the definition. Application of technology, science, and imagination that creates market value. The market pulled the iPod. We were tired of spending $12 or $10 for an album. We just wanted, but we'd spend 99 cents for a song. Somebody, Apple, came up with it, put it to place, and they won. Another example, the iPhone. I'm gonna replace this. I switched to the Samsung, not because I dislike Apple phones, but I went to the Samsung phone because there was a need in my life. It's called a camera. I have a grandson. If you want to see a picture, he's really a good-looking little kid. The nice thing, though, about technology, we tend to now think about the innovation of these things that we have called phones. There's everything in there. It actually does make phone calls for some young people. You don't have to text every time. You can actually use the phone. It does all kinds of things. My whole computer, my life, I can, this is it right there. There's my phone. Another example, Southwest Airlines. How many love Southwest Airlines? Just 2 of us? Why do we like 3 of us? What's Southwest Airlines innovation? You can change your ticket without any cost, and that's part of their added value. So they've added onto that. What was their original innovation? No assigned seats. Why was that? Did you ever ask You want to, I wanted to go to Delta and say, I was in Atlanta, grew up in Atlanta. Delta, I would really like to have no seats on this flight. You know, let me just pick one. So the market, did the market ask for that? No, what did the market want? Quick loading, move fast, on time. Southwest said, you know, why do we spend millions of dollars figuring out how to put people in different seats? Let's just get them all there and we'll deliver it to the marketplace. And lo and behold, it worked. Now, they experimented with it a long time in Texas. But Southwest right now has got what, the highest customer service rating, on-time delivery, low cost, because they did away with something that the market really didn't value anymore. Now, some of you do. Some of you like to fly Delta, and they're learning to figure it out, but they still are, it takes them, what, twice, 3 times as long to load a plane as it does Southwest? Another innovation, FedEx. Again, I'm just going to give you some examples to get you thinking about this topic of innovation. What did they innovate? Overnight delivery. How did they do it? Well, yeah, they do, and they have a huge, high accuracy rate. No, they didn't build a fleet of airplanes. Oh, they modified them to fit it, but that was not their innovation. Others had done that. DHL, others around the world doing this. What's different about Southwest? Excuse me, FedEx. Nobody from Memphis here? It's the hub and spoke. They changed the way they routed their airlines. Everything goes to Memphis, and at one day, and overnight they go out, and it's a hub and spoke model. Okay? And that revolutionized them. Now, it may put Memphis on the map too, but it allowed them to do one-day delivery. Where did they get that? Where do you think? How many of you ever, when you cruise the forest, isn't there some logic in how you do it? If you're a traveling salesman, this is an industrial engineering freshman level problem every industrial engineer goes through is, how do I optimize where do I put the warehouse? I want one warehouse, I want to get it to the one place and service everybody in one warehouse, or do I have to have 2 warehouses? They did the math and said, we could do 1. Well, how much did it reduce their cost? Huge. It allowed them to change overnight delivery. Think about the post office as the other extreme. Okay. Thousands of places that mail might go through before it gets to you. Procter & Gamble, an easy one. What's their innovation? Product, service, business model? Clearly a product innovation. And I use this as an example from a business strategy perspective. Procter & Gamble has a stated goal that they want about 40% of their revenue in 5 years to come from products they don't currently make. Not, it's a completely different industry than yours, but products that they don't currently make in 5 years, what does that mean? They have a whole system, a whole culture. They have a whole bunch of 4s and a whole bunch of 5s looking at figuring out how to innovate, because that's their business they're in. A couple more. Wally World, my favorite example. Walmart, what's their innovation? And don't tell me low price, because it's the same products that we buy other places. What is their innovation? One-stop shop is they're expanding their business, and that's the nice thing about innovation. Once somebody comes to market and they win because they bring something new that the market values, it allows them to build on that. But that wasn't their original one. Reliability with respect to product being there. It's on the shelf. How did they do that? Yes, sir. Distribution and system. They basically every night, this was before the internet. Every night they would do an inventory of every store, blow it up, throw it on a satellite, it'd go to Arkansas. They would figure out, I bought 1 of these, 2 of these, I need to have it replaced, put it on the shelf. It comes out on a truck. It's a distribution system. In retail, where did they get that? for those of you that were in manufacturing. But think of GM, think of the Ford Motor Companies, think of Toyota. We've been doing that for years in manufacturing. It's called inventory management. They wanted things. They started building on that innovation. But their original innovation was they were going to use their information as a competitive weapon in restoring their inventory. I've never worked in retail, but typically in most retail stores, you turn your inventory, a couple of times a year, 4 or 5 times a year. They're up to 40, 50 times a year they're turning their inventory. I think about my sawmill customers. How many times would you like to turn your inventory? Why do you have this stuff? It's because nobody's buying it. It's waste. So again, you see the theme. There was a need. They said, who else is doing something that's similar to this problem? Can't we just bring it into our industry? Back to thinking about what Doug said, at level 4s and 5s. We're looking outside the organization. Harley-Davidson, innovation. Whoa, is it a business, service, product, process? This is the answer. This is the proverbial all 4. Harley-Davidson, their innovation is what? Any Harley riders in the room? Would you admit it if you were? Think about Harley-Davidson. Most Harley-Davidsons nowadays are owned by doctors, lawyers, and CEOs and VPs and people like that. They have a lot of money because they're expensive. They make more money. They make more profit off their apparel than they do their motorcycles. It's an experience. They've redefined motorcycle riding for their market. It's an experience. It's the old bad boy experience. Trust me. You know how much it costs to start a Harley franchise? $1 million just to start talking to them about the franchise. So it has a huge following. It's completely changed. The internet. Obviously, the Internet of Things is becoming huge. Let me give you an example that you might know. Anybody look to the left-hand corner up there? Uber. Anybody done an Uber taxi yet? Goodness gracious! Look at you guys. You are early adopters of an innovation. I've never even done Uber before. Early adopters of. Why do you use Uber? Didn't have a car. What are your options? Taxi. So, great example. The market, nobody stood up and said, you know what, I want a different kind of taxi. And we used to call those limos, and they were very expensive. Nobody stood up and said, we got to do this. Somebody came up with the Uber idea, application of technology, application of imagination, bunch of people out there. Next thing you know, that's probably one of the fastest market-pulled innovation that I can think of. It's amazing how quickly people have just adapted it. Why? Because it filled a need in the marketplace. So, hopefully those are some examples to get you thinking about how do I think differently in this topic of innovation. Put one more chart up. It's an ugly chart. If you want a copy of it, I'd be glad to give you a copy of it. But I want to use this chart to make a few closing comments. This is a model that I've used over the years to help organizations implement an innovative process, culture, strategy in their business. And this chart, in some areas, we'll go through certain things, and you're going to see some similarity to it. Number one, opportunity sensing. I keep saying this is market pulled. How do you know there's an opportunity there? Many organizations they don't formalize the way they look at opportunities. They basically say to the sales guys, come back and tell us some things that we can make. Or they might even have an R&D department. Well, make some good things so we can go out and sell some new products. This is a full contact sport, opportunity sensing. Okay. Was that the signal to pull? This is a full contact sport. 3 areas. Focus on your current customers, your market opportunities, and technology trends. similar to what we saw on the earlier slide. So how do we do that? How do we divide those labors up? Again, if you have a level 3 and you're trying to move them to a 4, one of the things I'd love to tell them to do is I want you to go do a study. I want you to take, over the next 3 months, 20 hours and look at an adjacent market. Look at a market that we don't currently serve, but we could serve, maybe. And let them go look at that market and bring back that study. You say, well, it's 20 hours over 3 months. They can squeeze that in. It's a challenge. It moves them up. And you need to do it. I actually have one customer who's a very large company. They're a defense contractor, and they're really good in technology, and they keep trying to figure out what adjacent markets they can get into, because if you're a defense contractor, your budgets over the last few years has sort of been like this because the defense budget's been flat. They've done this, and they've done this in many areas, and they've even done it international, and they've gone from 13% to 20-something% of their sales now is international because they're proactively looking at different markets. And again, often it's just go to a conference, go somewhere else and just sit and observe. So a lot of formal structure. You can imagine in the middle section. Okay. All right, one more. There we go. The middle section. The little quote there that came up, chance favors the connected mind. It's the same concept that you've heard earlier. The more connections we have, it's not by accident. If I'm connected to a lot of people and talking to, looking at a lot of different publications, etc., there's a lot higher chance something's going to pop out than if I'm not. If I'm zeroed in on my industry, and that's all I look at material handling magazines, and I don't ever look at anything else, what's going to happen? Pretty narrow. This middle process we help organizations with, which really is the whole idea of incubation. Anybody heard of something that's fairly new called design thinking? It's a great topic for you guys from an emerging leadership perspective. Design thinking, there's a company called IDEO in Palo Alto, California area. They're probably one of the best. I would say they are the best. But they've changed how we look at redesigning products, services, business models, etc. And so I'm a big believer of that process and how do we move things quickly through an organization? How do we get ideas? These last two boxes I want to spend just a few more minutes on because this is the leadership's role. Strategy alignment. I've been to organizations that have said, Ned, we understand all this innovation stuff. We've read the books. We've tried things, and it failed. Why did it fail? Well, people come up with all these ideas, and they're stupid. They're silly. They want us to, go out and spend $5,000 on this piece of software to do something, and what are we going to do with it? And I said, so how does your innovation align with your business strategy? And they say, what? How does it align with your business strategy? Every organization has a business strategy. You go to the market. You either compete on cost or products or services or logistics. You compete on something. And if you don't tie your innovation programs to your business strategy, people are free to go think of really cool things that may not help the business. As a matter of fact, they'll probably cost the business because they want you to spend money. So we sort of have to reboot and say, let's talk about what your business strategy is. Let's educate people what the business strategy is. And let's ensure that they have the information that's required. And then let's reboot the innovation process so people will be innovating that would support your business strategy. I have one client in the industry. They are intense users of information, and that has allowed them to innovate in areas that early and throughout their history, because they weren't afraid to use the information that they had and say, let's just go see if it works, and let's see if we can read something in this information, and let's go try it with our customers. So business, there's sort of two messages here. If you went to your Next level, if you're the senior leader and you went to your next level down or even one level down below that, depending on how big your organization is, and you said, what's our business strategy? And you get a lot of blank looks. Well, we just make good stuff. And you say, well, how do we compete different from our competition? And why would our customers buy from us rather than X? If there's not a clear answer, then I would say it's time to jump to communicate your own firm on what your business strategy is. Not to be, but to be in reality, about 50% of the firms their employees have no idea what their real business strategy is. That's sort of what they do up in the front office. Level 4, level 5 type people if they don't know the strategy, they're confused and they're going to be frustrated and they will ultimately leave. Particularly, we're learning from the younger people, if they're not aware of what the strategy is, they're going to find a firm that wants to use them. The last area then is this cultural alignment. Doug's already talked to you about the culture, and so I'm not going to go over what he's already said. I think it's very appropriate. What I would say is that for years I used to debate with some colleagues, who's in charge of culture in the company? Is the HR department? Clearly, it's the leadership team. It's the owners of the firm. It's the senior managers of the firm. It's the leadership team. You set the culture. And you can set the culture by your style. I know some companies, there's no right leadership style. It's your style. There's organization design. I've seen matrix organizations have a high innovative culture, and I've seen matrix organizations shoot themselves daily. There's no right answer, and despite what any of us would tell you in the business community, in the business schools. There is a risk and reward part of culture. So if we don't allow people to fail, then we're shortchanging the culture. You've heard that in the innovation speeches. People have got to be able to fail. You have permission to fail. I'm going to put a little caveat on that. I think people should have permission to fail, but not be stupid. Say it bluntly. If I just try something in my division and it doesn't work, and your division tries the same thing, then it's not going to work either. Then we have two failures, right? Me for not sharing with him, and him for not looking at what's going on in the rest of the organization. Failure is something that we should learn from. If we don't learn anything from it, I don't think it's a very good thing to do. And as a senior manager, I'd shoot it and figure out how not to do it anymore. Failure means we learn something from that, and we know better what might succeed. And that's part of the sort of the innovation process. So let me wrap up with a little bit on the right. One slide one area that I haven't talked to that I think brings this together. You notice now on the right, if we do all these things, if we align the strategy, if we have a great culture and we put processes into place and we go outside and we start figuring out what information's available and what the customers and markets are looking for, we're going to innovate in product processes and business models. And on the bottom right-hand corner there's a new phrase called human capital. Over the last couple of years, I've been doing some work in leadership around particularly emerging leaders and millennial leaders, etc. And all this nice discussion about millennials and Gen Xers and Gen Ys and all this is interesting, but there's a common thread. It's a common thread. And it's called engagement, getting people engaged in the business. The more people are engaged, whether it's from an innovation perspective, a productivity perspective, a quality perspective, whatever it is, the more people are engaged in the business, the more we're going to grow that human capital, and people are excited about being in the firm. Those who say, well, I'm just here for the job, etc., figure out there's many ways to help them get engaged and get excited about it. I tell folks, and maybe I'm at this stage of life, there's nothing worse than coming to work every day and not really wanting to be there. And there's nothing worse than running a firm with a bunch of people that don't really want to be there, and yet there's opportunities, there's problems to solve, etc. The concept of leadership is investing in human capital. It's investing in people. Human capital is a nice way we say it in the business school. It really is investing in people. So if you boil all these comments down, the leader's role is to figure out how to help people succeed in their current jobs and maybe even their next job and their next job. It's investing in them. So think of innovation from that way. Put it as one more tool in your strategy toolbox, and enjoy reading. If you want some more resources on innovation, I can supply you. I've got list of topics and ideas on places to send you. That's the great thing about the internet. All information is already out there. You just got to figure out where to go get it, and I can help connect you to do that. Very good. All right, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.